Hi everybody, welcome to Jin's Wall Street News. According to the S&P Global, the flash US Composite Purchasing Managers Index fell from 53.5 in March to 51.2 in April. The US Census Bureau and the US Department of Housing, Urban Development reported Wednesday that sales of new single-family houses jumped 7.4% in March from the previous month. For the US stocks, S&P 500 rose 1.67% and the Nasdaq Composite jumped 2.5% Wednesday. The semiconductor companies Texas Instruments and Lam Research both released their earnings for calendar Q1 after the bell on Wednesday. Texas Instruments expects current quarter's revenue to rise 7% quarter-over-quarter, and Lam Research expects calendar Q2 revenue growth of 6% sequentially. According to the S&P Global, the flash US Composite Purchasing Managers Index fell from 53.5 in March to 51.2 in April. The S&P Global said, quote, U.S. business activity growth slowed to a 16-month low in April, with business expectations about the year ahead also dropping to one of the lowest levels since the pandemic. The S&P Global Flash US Services PMI also decreased from 54.4 in March to 51.4 in April. The S&P Global said, quote, growth of service sector business activity slowed sharply to only a modest pace in response to slower order book growth. Demand growth was subdued in particular by a fall in exports of services on a scale not seen since January 2023. Meanwhile, the S&P Global Flash US Manufacturing PMI increased from 50.2 in March to 50.7 in April. The S&P Global said, quote, whilst new orders placed at factories rose at a slightly increased rate linked to higher domestic orders, the increase was only modest and curbed by a marked fall in export orders. The U.S. Census Bureau, the U.S. Department of Housing, Urban Development reported Wednesday that sales of new single-family houses jumped 7.4% from 674,000 in February to 724,000 in March, up 6% from 683,000 in March last year. In addition, the median sales price of new houses fell 1.9% from $411,500 in February to $403,600 in March, down 7.5% from $436,400 in March last year. The US dollar index jumped right after the S&P Global US PMI report, as investors think the US economy just slows in April and it doesn't fall into a recession yet. It seems like investors are starting to look at economic data again. US stocks rose on Wednesday as the US dollar index moved up. S&P 500 added 1.67% and the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 1.07%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq jumped 2.5%. Texas Instruments, a semiconductor company, announced its earnings on Wednesday after the bell. The company reported $4.07 billion of revenue for the previous quarter, up 2% sequentially. However, its net income decreased 2% from $1.21 billion in calendar Q4 last year to $1.18 billion in calendar Q1 2025. When it comes to the guidance, the company expects current quarter's revenue to be between $4.17 billion and $4.53 billion, the midpoint of $4.35 billion, up 7% quarter over quarter. Shares of Texas Instruments jumped 4.85% in extended trading on Wednesday. Texas Instruments CEO Haviv Ilan said during the conference call, quote, "To help understand where we are in the cycle, we spent some time looking at previous events including Y2K, the global financial crisis, and the COVID-19 pandemic. These recent examples help inform our decisions as we prepare for a range of market scenarios. What may be unique right now is that we are at the bottom of the semiconductor cycle and customer inventories are at low levels across all end markets." Lam Research, another semiconductor company, also released its financial results after the bell on Wednesday. The company reported $4.72 billion of revenue for the calendar Q1, up 8% from calendar Q4 last year. Net income also rose 12% from $1.19 billion in calendar Q4 last year to $1.33 billion in calendar Q1 this year. When it comes to the guidance, the company expects current quarter's revenue to be $5 billion, up 6% from the previous quarter. Lam Research stock gained 2.65% in extended trading on Wednesday. Okay, this is the end of today's news. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.